Welcome to the next episode of the Here and There podcast, a ministry of one church in Liberty, Missouri. If you're watching this from outside the Midwestern United States, Liberty is right on the edge of Kansas City, Missouri, at the crossroads of the North American continent. My name is Lydia McAvoy, and I am excited to be having these conversations with people that are on the move in missions, people that help move missions and missionaries, and ultimately conversations that move your heart and mind closer to the heart of God and to His desire to redeem and relate to His people across the street and around the world. Tonight, we're talking to Lillian Armstrong, affectionately referred to as Lil by her church family, just a few weeks after she returned from her most recent trip to Kenya, where she ministers with Africa Connect, an organization that partners with Kenyan nationals to support projects that empower, educate, and restore dignity and health to needy communities. Always seeking to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and of course, putting the gospel first, they focus on developing sustainable projects that inspire a sense of ownership and purpose. And very near and dear to her heart is Seed of Hope Christian Academy. Using that title, missionary, sometimes feels really heavy, or we feel like maybe it shouldn't apply. We're just normal people that just kind of love Jesus and love doing something fun and love people. But definitely Lil is a missionary, and definitely somebody that we can learn from and learn about her experience. She has gone on 8 trips with Africa Connect and just got back a couple weeks ago. So we're just going to dig right in and see how God brought her to that journey and what exciting things she thinks might be in the future. So let's start at the very beginning. How did you first come to know and love Jesus?
Well, that's kind of ancient history. It takes me all the way back to childhood and in college, and I won't go through a lot of that. But when I got into college, I started just thinking about what did I believe, and the one thing I remember thinking was it's not just going to church. It has to be a part of my everyday life. So I kind of went forward with that in mind. And when I got to graduate school, I had a person that I worked with. I worked in the food labs, and she said she and I would talk about faith. And one of my concerns was that I could lose my faith, because I grew up in the time when there was a lot of crusades, and every time there was a crusade, I'd go forward for the altar call, and I just was always afraid that I'd be left behind. And she said, Lillian, you can know for sure. Just pick a day and ask Jesus into your life, and you can know for sure that it's a finished deal. So that was a big deal for me, and it started my journey forward, because I feel that was really holding me back. And I grew up in a family that was really active in church, and that continued through my adult years. And anyway, I did a lot of study and different Bible studies and continued to grow. But I was always looking for something that would take me a little bit deeper. So that takes me to Africa Connect. I never really thought about being a missionary, because like you said, I just thought, well, I'm not missionary material. I mean, that was always, somebody that was real spiritual, and they went and they did all these things, and that I didn't feel like
had it all together.
Yes, had it all together. But so it actually started with my son. My son was dating a girl, and she and her parents actually started Africa Connect. And so they, Janelle is her name, and she told her mom and dad when she was in high school that she wanted to go to Africa. And this is specifically to Kenya, and this is because they met a pastor from Kenya at their church. And her mom said, you are not going to Kenya without me. And her dad said, and you two are not going to Kenya without me. And so they ended up, like in 3 weeks, they were in Kenya. And it was a real shock, culture shock. But through their faithfulness and just their concern, They were there for a very short time. They fell in love with the Kenyan people, and they decided that this is what God wanted them to do. So a couple years later, when my son started dating Janelle, he decided to go to Kenya with them. And he came back, and when he went, he was just a typical 19-year-old boy that never thought about doing anything to help anybody. And he came back, and he had changed. And I was just like shocked, And so that's the first time Kenya was on my heart. And then it was interesting because God kept putting Kenya back in my life. The church I was going to at that time in Minnesota, they had a team that went to Kenya. Oh, I wanted to go so bad. But I was working full time and I couldn't go. And I'm just like, I really want to go to Kenya. But it took 7 years before I had the opportunity, from the time my son went to the time that through a set of circumstances, I was able to go to Kenya. And so I went with this group, and I don't even remember how many of us went, but it usually is a pretty small team. But I went with the group, and I'd never been in a third world country. So that was a huge eye-opener. I'd done some traveling, but not to a third world country. And the interesting thing about Africa Connect is that they always have been partnered with a church. And so I went to the church, and we went into the slums for the first time. And it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. I mean, there's clay, it's clay, dirt all over. There's no paved streets. The houses are sometimes made out of sod, sometimes made out of metal siding. And the people are in rags, and the homes are just very primitive. And I got back from that experience. I got back into the church, and I just cried for 30 minutes. I thought, God, what can I do to help? It was an overwhelming feeling, but it really, they just got into my heart. And so that was in 2014, and I've been back as often as I can since then. And it's amazing to see what God has done in this organization.
Do you think that there's a connection? Because, so, when we go to Brazil, we go out into the tribes as well, which is also a lot of poverty. And I love the humanitarian things we do and the hands and feet of Jesus. And I do think that preaching at people that are hungry is probably not very effective. And I get all of that. But do you think that there's a connection with spiritual darkness and with the poverty? And how are you attacking maybe the poverty and those kinds of things through with Jesus as well?
Yes.
The transforming power of Jesus. Jesus fed people before he spoke to him too, right?
Yes,
and there is
exactly.
nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, if that's all you do and you just tell them we're here in the name of Jesus, I think God uses that. But how do you think there's that connection where the transformation of the heart might make a difference?
Well, the Africa Connect is Africa Connect because their goal is to connect with the African people, and there's always a pastor that we've been involved with. And from the very beginning, the idea was that the African team would be the ones that would help make decisions. Sometimes when missionaries go to different countries, they go in and with the mindset that we're going to fix things for these people. Right. And that's, in the case of Africa and probably many places, that doesn't really work. You have to understand the culture. You have to understand what their lives are like. And most people can't just walk into a country and know that. And so I think that was a key thing with Africa Connect, to connect with these different pastors and different people. And we have a fantastic team of locals from the area.
Yes.
That is so beautiful. In fact, when I come back and people say, oh, wow, you did so much. And it's like, no, not really. I was there for 3 to 6 weeks. And now the Africa team, is going to take the rest of the year and do all the follow-up work and things like that. I didn't mention that Africa Connect, their primary focus in the beginning was on preschool children out of the slums. And so this church that they first partnered with had a small preschool, but no money, and it wasn't really working very well. So Bob and Luann, who were the founders, decided that that's what God had sent them to do. So they started a free preschool for children in this this town of Kitale, Kenya, where we go. And
Katali, how's that spelled?
Kitale.
Okay.
Kitale.
Because I will add some mapping.
Right. Well,
Yes.
I probably don't say it the way that it used to.
I
That's how I say it.
just need to type it in. It's all good.
Yeah. But anyway, so so they started working this preschool. And see, what's hard for people in America to understand is that if you can't afford to buy a uniform, pay for the books, pay for the t-shirts, you are not going to school. You just can't. And so these children in the slums, and I will say that from the beginning, Africa Connect has had a way to know who the most desperate children or the very desperate. And so these children have no opportunity.
It's because they partner with the locals that lead them to that. I mean, I think that it makes such a difference. That is so powerful.
It's hard when you walk through the slum because you see kids that aren't dressed very well. You know, they were all in rags. And so I would have no idea. They all look poor to me. But these are social workers, local social workers identify who the most desperate are.
Yes.
And so we started with this preschool. And then as the kids would graduate out of the preschools, we're like, okay, now what?
Right.
You know, and they help kids find different schools, but I'm not sure exactly when it happened in the history, but at one point, one of the most promising students was killed in a tragic accident.
Oh dear.
His name was Ian, and out of Ian's death, we established Ian Memorial Scholarship. And that scholarship program is to take those kids that are desperate and show promise on into primary school and then junior secondary and secondary.
So in this part of Kenya, do children have to pay to go to school?
Oh, yes. Even if it's a government school, everybody pays.
Everybody has to pay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's very prohibitive for the people in the slums.
I was going to say that probably really contributes. I mean, at least I know we have a lot of disparity in the quality of schools based on poverty here in the United States, but you do have a school. So that's really just probably contributes to that disparity and to the poor staying poor.
Yes.
Because if they can't even afford to go to school.
And Kenya is a very corrupt country. And I've noticed as I've gotten more, have gone back more, like the schools can change the price at any time.
Oh,
They can pay the fees, and then they'll say, "Oh, we need another $50."
And probably even if they don't like somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just very, very different.
Okay.
But we, in fact, we ended up changing locations about 3 times. And then in the year of COVID, we were there the year of COVID. In fact, we got the last plane out of Kenya before the airports closed down.
Okay.
And so we didn't go for 2 years. And in that time, God made it very clear that he wanted us to build a preschool and a primary school.
Okay.
So it's miraculous. We're a very, very small program, but we were able to buy plots of land and put a permanent building up.
That's awesome.
So when we went back in 2003, we had this compound. And
so you used that downtime.
Yes.
You know, God was still pushing the ministry forward.
Right.
So that's amazing.
It,
That's awesome.
It was amazing just to see what God had done. And now every time we go back, it's just amazing what God has done.
Now, I have a quick question. I'm sorry if you to cut you off. So one thing that I think is really cool about Ray of Hope is that they are not shy about going ahead and partnering when the government does offer any type of resource. And they can do that as a charitable organization, and they can go ahead and get some free help or partnership. They take it. And a lot of Christian organizations can sometimes be hesitant about that. And I think they've seen it as a tool. You know, they'll use it when it's a tool. They stay away from it when they don't need to. Is there any assistance from the government? I mean, does the government care about their poorest people and the fact that you guys are there to try to help them?
No.
Wow.
There is no safety net for the people in the slums.
Okay. So are you working against the government sort of almost? I mean, or is it not, I don't mean like, but I mean, are they an impediment or are they neutral?
Sometimes, I mean, a lot of things are accomplished with bribes, and
well, there you go.
our organization won't pay bribes.
Right.
So we have to find a way around it. But I will say that God has provided people in Kenya that have government ties, and they've helped us achieve some things.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and there are different kinds of hoops in here.
Right.
It's, if you want that building, we need a bribe. If you want this, your school approved and certified, you need to pay this bribe. And to try to work through all that is difficult.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, well, I don't know where you were headed before that, but okay, so you were back in 2000, and then we went up through COVID. You got the permanent school. What did you do on this last trip, or what have you been going towards in these last few trips?
Yeah, well, the trips look similar in a lot of ways. There's usually other things that come up, but one of so we have the primary school. It started with grades 1 through 3, and then the preschool is 3 grades also. And then the next year we added 4th grade, and then this year we added 5th grade. And so through the Ian Memorial Scholarship Program, we have 100 kids that are sponsored. And so we spend a lot of our time.
Who funds that?
People donate.
Okay. Excellent.
So
and can we put a link to that? Is that on Africa Connect's website? A link to?
If not, I can get it for you.
Okay.
So a couple can sponsor a child.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yep.
So my husband and I sponsor several children, and one of the best things about the trip is I get to see those children every single time. So I'm not like a normal sponsor. I actually get to meet them and and hug them and
they're real.
Yes, they're real. So we spend a lot of time going into the homes. And the idea behind Africa Connect is always to make it sustainable by the locals. Yeah. And we say often, we don't know what next year will bring. Right. We don't know if we're going to be able to come. So we're always looking for ways to make it self-supporting. And they are making steps to do that.
I hear you did soap.
Yeah, well,
I did soap. I love soap.
That was one of our participants. It was her idea to do soap.
You know what? It went over great in the jungle, and I did it terribly, and it still went over great in the jungle. It's fun to make, and it's awesome. So anyway, I just thought that was so cool. Soap and sewing, which is the 2 things that I've used in Brazil as well to try to be self-sustaining. And awesome.
We have added empowerment programs for the parents of the kids, and so we have farming, we have business. A lot of people take business classes, and then we can, through donations, we can sometimes help people start businesses. Mm-hmm. We have a tailoring program. We have a hairdressing program. We're going to start a program for men, like in, I was trying to think of a good way to describe it, but it's like woodworking. I can't think of the
woodworking.
Well, it's not woodworking.
Carpentry?
It's metal, it's woodworking, it's those kind of things.
Okay.
I did come up with a word, but I can't remember.
That's all right.
But anyway, so we try, and the parents sign a contract at the beginning of every school year that they will participate in an empowerment program. If they don't have a job, they are to participate in an empowerment program with the idea that they can work to help support their children.
Absolutely.
And we're having to get tougher and tougher to really enforce that, because the person that suffers the most is the child.
Absolutely.
But we really want to see transformation at all levels. So we want to see spiritual transformation, first of all, but then also emotional and physical transformation, which I love about the organization that I work with.
Are you able to, is the school a Christian school? Are you able to teach religious instruction?
It's a private school.
And so the government does allow that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we have a church on the compound, and this
Okay.
pastor and his wife that we have partnered with for many, many years. He's the pastor of the church. She is the school administrator. And all of the people that are working in the school are Christian.
Okay.
And it's very much a part of the curriculum.
Okay.
Every Friday, I think, or it used to be every Friday, they'd have a worship service. And
Good.
the kids are
Good,
learning
good.
all sorts of songs all about Jesus. And it's interesting, English is the second language in Kenya. And so a lot of their songs are in English, but with the accents, sometimes it's hard to know, is it really
yeah.
English or are they doing it in
African
Swahili?
accented English is
Yeah.
sometimes very difficult for me to understand.
And I'll be like, oh, they're singing Jesus Love Me. I know that one too. Okay, then I can join in.
I have the funniest story one time on the boat in Brazil. So the main missionary man is actually from the southern part of the United States, and then he moved there many years ago. So he speaks English in a way that I can barely understand. He's like, deep Southern drawl. And then he speaks Portuguese with a deep Southern drawl. It's hilarious, actually. And then we had a pastor visiting from South Africa. So he spoke English, but with that strong South African accent. And then we've got the people from the Midwest. And then we had somebody else too. And I was thinking, I can't imagine what it's like for the translators that are trying to translate. And they're just going, are you all speaking the same language? And the funny thing was, I was like, I don't actually, I know. The other one is Gloria, who's in charge. She speaks English pretty well, but she has a strong Portuguese accent. It's way her second language. Mm-hmm. And she's yelling it into a bullhorn. And so, I have no idea what she's saying. And it's just, the poor translators have to be like, could we just pick one version of English? It's funny. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have a question because I love hearing something about what you're saying. So short-term missions is sometimes either misunderstood or dismissed because, we say, we're not there all the time and we just go on these short trips and there's questions about the commitment level and all that kind of thing. But if you go to the same place time after time, you do develop these lifelong relationships. Mm-hmm. And it's almost can be more powerful because you come back to the United States, which is a place with resources, and you can get yourself recharged, you can get new ideas, but you can also, get support and awareness here in the United States more than you would if you just went down there for several years and people didn't see you on a regular basis. But over time, going to the same place in the same ministry, I have developed real relationships with actual either indigenous or Brazilian people, like not the missionaries, people that we've ministered to. And one of the communities that we go to, those ladies know me. They think I'm hilarious in a weird way. But anyway, they know me and we're friends because they've gotten to trust me because I've gone so many times. Have you been able to develop anything like that with Kenyans over time?
Yes. And it's one of my favorite things. It always amazes me. I get on a plane, I fly halfway across the world, I get there and I'm home.
Yeah.
And I'm home while I'm there.
I just got a huge chill.
and it's because I'm seeing the same people.
Yep.
I can hear, we've really seen in the last couple of years, we've seen real transition, where the parents are making, starting to make money. And it's interesting that it just makes me think of this as we go into the homes. Now this year, the first homes we went into were the preschool homes. So these are people that have not been in our program. And it was tough because they were very impoverished. What we see in the homes where Jesus is a part, of course, and they've been with our programs for a while, is you go into the homes and they're physically lighter.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit cleaner. They always make an effort to be as clean as possible, but there's just a difference. You can tell.
Hope makes a difference.
It makes
throughout all
difference.
Of life, right?
Yeah. So it is like going to my second home.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing.
And hugging the people that I've seen and the kids. Oh, I got to tell a story. I don't know how.
No, please do. We're doing great.
I have a little girl. Her name is Lucky Angel. That's what they call her.
No way.
Yes. And went into her home and they were introducing me. And I usually, when I start, I say that, my name, and I say that I believe that I'm there I'm not there by accident, that I'm there for a reason, because I'm randomly assigned to a group to go into certain homes. And the person I'm talking to is literally God put in there.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I start talking about Jesus, and that God has told me to come over and tell them that they are loved, they are seen. He wants the very best for them. But anyway, and then, we get to talking. And, but Lucky Angel, I remembered her from the year before, because I think she's 4 now, but last year she was 3. She was just so cute, and she'd run like a little toddler down the street, and she was so cute. And I was being introduced to her mother, and her mother says, "I know who you are." She said, "Lucky Angel has talked about nothing but Lillian this and Lillian that and Lillian this." And I was just so touched that she would remember me in the same way I remembered her.
Yeah.
So that was really special.
When I first started going to Brazil, I try to draw things. I try to do art. I don't know whether I actually do it or not, but I would draw pictures of the kids and leave them pictures. And I am not a very good portrait drawer, so they were pretty rough, but especially when I was first trying to do this. But this one girl, the very first time we'd ever gone to São Sebastião, I had drawn her. And years later, when I was there, she came and gave me a hug, and I recognized who she was, and she ran to her house and got that picture. And I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, "Honey, I'll try it again. It's not very good." But that was just so neat. It meant something to her. So, and it was just cool. So that means a lot. Were you saying 1 minute, or 5 minutes? Oh, okay. Good. Okay, we're good. Well, I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but let's do kind of rapid fire. First of all, is there anything that you want to make sure and emphasize or say that I haven't asked? And then let's get some details of top needs, physical needs, spiritual needs, whatever, things that we can pray about, things that people that might watch this could support or pray about, when you might be going back next, details and those kinds of things.
Okay. Well, I wanted to make sure and talk about a little bit about what I think, well, I don't know, but we think God has in mind for this next year.
Okay.
And that is...
That's a missionary right there. Whatever God's going to do, because we have no idea, right?
We would not be where we were today if we had been limited by our thoughts.
Absolutely.
I will just say that.
Absolutely.
But this next year, we're hoping to put up a junior secondary school. And so we will add 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So that's a big deal. We already have the land.
You have teachers?
The native people that we work with have an amazing way, and I don't know how they do this, to find the very best teachers. We have one woman that's been with us for 14 years, and she's an excellent teacher.
Okay.
And every time we go, we've had a lot of hiring of people, and they are all excellent. We just have really good people that can find them. So it'll be exciting to see how God provides, because all of the fundraising will be done here. I forgot all the things.
Here, as in the United States.
Here in the United States.
To do
and
that.
I didn't mention, I am the only Kansas Cityan in the organization. I'm also on the board. Everybody else is from Massachusetts.
Okay, I feel kind of the same way. A lot of with Ray of Hope, a lot of people are in Colorado and Illinois, and So I get it.
And in Kenya, they don't quite get it. They're like, "Well, say hi to Sue for me." And I'm like, "I don't see Sue except if she comes to Kenya." So.
Right, exactly.
But anyway,
okay.
And then you had.
So you think, well, no, I'll guide you through it. That's fine. I just want to keep it kind of rapid fire. Mm-hmm. So the big next thing is going to be to expand this school up until to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yep.
And that's hoping to happen over the next year?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah. Excellent.
But we do have the land already, so that helps.
Okay. And I will scour that website, and there will be links to things where people can support if they want to. All 12 people that might see this at this point, but someday it'll be huge.
Yes,
I just know it. Okay, so there's that. When do you think you might be able to go back next?
We usually go around January.
Okay.
January, February, March is when we go. Now, I've got several students that I support that are graduating in October. So a little part of me kind of wants to go in October, but I'm not sure if that'll happen. But
Yeah.
we usually go January, February, March. Bummer. But it's the dry.
I was just going to say, so
Period.
that's the summer there because it's the southern hemisphere, right? In Brazil, there isn't really summer and winter. There's wet and dry. The
Yes,
temperature's pretty much the same.
That's the same.
Okay.
The place we go is about 50 miles from the equator.
Oh, so it's
there's
really
not a
not
lot of fluctuation.
right.
It's
Okay.
wet or dry.
It's wet or dry. Yeah. Okay. And you guys might want wet there in Brazil. They're like, don't come when the river's high, right? You can't get anywhere. Okay. So we have that. So you're going to probably, so a huge blessing would be if you could go and see those kids graduate.
Yes, I would
but
love to.
definitely you try to go back next year.
Yeah.
And you pretty much make a priority to try to go every year.
I do.
Okay. And then just, I don't know if you feel comfortable or if anything pops up in your mind, if not, it's fine. But, are there any like specific items that either you would like to take that we could sponsor and you could take, or even for you? Like, when we go to the Amazon, we live on a boat and then we go up in the jungle. And so like we have a whole bin in our house that looks like weird camping gear. That's jungle gear, jungle survival gear that we've had to buy over the years, and that kind of thing we do, and certain creature comforts that really make a huge difference on that boat, and also to give to the indigenous people and stuff like that. So do you have any items or things like that?
Well, for me personally, no. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you, we stay in a very nice gated compound. And
Okay. Well, you shouldn't be embarrassed.
But, we're not really having to do without much there. But as far as the people, we usually take medical things.
Yeah.
We do sometimes do clinics. Almost every year we do a clinic or two. And
So like single package, white, like
alcohol
antibacterial
wipes,
and
yeah.
vitamins and those kinds of things. Yeah, we do a lot of that too. Okay.
And then we usually take games. This year, somebody thought to take a kickball, and we taught them kickball.
Absolutely.
It was hilarious. And I took a bunch of soccer balls, or footballs, as they say in Kenya, footballs. And but toys. This year they took disposable rain gear.
Have you ever used the soccer ball as the wordless book? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
The colorful soccer. So we do that in Brazil, because obviously in Brazil, soccer is literally a religion.
Yeah.
But there's a soccer ball you can buy, and I think they sell it on Amazon. And like it has a red thing and a green and a gold and a black, like the
Okay,
wordless book.
sure.
And you turn the soccer ball around.
That's cool. I'll have to
It
look
teaches
at
the
that.
wordless book. But I'm sure soccer's big in Kenya too. I mean,
it's huge.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't understand American football. That just means nothing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
But yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And just, we
Okay.
usually take some kind of toys and sometimes office, index cards or paper or coloring things or that kind of thing.
Okay.
So,
Well, when you're going next time, Propempo will want to know, and if you have a little bit of a wish list, or I know one thing that I think would be great for Propempo to start doing going forward is sponsor a suitcase. Because I don't know about you, but when we go, we take like 2 or 3 suitcases per person, and it gets really expensive. But it's just like $100 to be like, we'll pay for the fee, the baggage fee, which is actually getting to be more than $100, but that's okay.
yeah.
It makes a big difference to the person that's having to, I'll tote it for you and I'll fill it for you, but if you can sponsor it, it'd be great. So.
I know I just thought of another thing is like laptop computers, because they are starting a computer lab for the high school kids and for the teachers. And if we get into junior secondary, we'll have to teach computers.
Okay.
So
is there Wi-Fi and electricity?
It's getting better.
Okay.
It used to be almost every night we didn't have any, but this year I think it only went down once or twice. So
in Brazil, the government provides electricity to everybody. So you will go into a place where it's a couple tin slabs up against a pole, and that's their house. And in the middle of it, hanging from the pole, is an old iPhone plugged in to electricity. And you're just like, it's so weird.
Yeah.
But the government gives them electricity. So,
Yep.
yeah. But
There's no guarantee of electricity or sewage or garbage disposal or anything in the slums.
right.
So,
Okay.
but some people do have electricity. But for the school, we have electricity.
Could they use a generator? Or do they use a generator? Would they be able to get gas?
Well, the thing is the school is pretty well equipped. The slums, it just varies,
Right,
and
okay.
it's they either have things or they don't.
And so you would keep it centralized at the school. Okay. All right. So I'm assuming we've gotten to our time. Okay. Well, I would like to finish up, if it's okay with you, and if you are okay with it, with Hannah praying over Africa Connect and over the people that you love. And I know you're not going anytime soon, but just praying specifically for your ministry and for Lucky.
Yes.
Right? I love that. Lucky, what was her second?
Angel.
Lucky Angel. This is a Chinese restaurant I used to love called Lucky Star. And I was like, it's not Lucky Star, it's Lucky Angel.
Yeah.
But we got to pray for Lucky Angel. Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Have your mic.
Oh, yes, you may have my mic.
Yes, Lord, thank you so much for Lil. Thank you for Africa Connect. And Lord, we just say thank you for all the teachers and all the good things you have going there. Lord, I say thank you for protection as they went. Thank you for the joy of the Lord being their strength on that trip. And yeah, Lord, I just say thank you, and I speak blessings over all the future plans of the school to build a secondary school and to break ground. We just say yes and amen, and we speak protection and clarity of mind for everything that's coming up. And yes, I say thank you for Lil. Thank you for all that you're doing in her life and through her. In Jesus' name, amen.
And that was Hannah praying, offering the prayer. She's a missionary with YWAM, who will be hopefully a subject of a future podcast or somehow featured. So thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us as we spoke to Lil today. But we don't want this to be the last time you think about her, as she supports Africa Connect from thousands of miles away. And as she carries their ministry and their needs on her heart, we want to help her prepare to return and continue her ministry in the future. Please follow Lil's journey and support her as you're able. Africa Connect is on Facebook at facebook.com/africaconnect.us, on Instagram at Africa_Connect_. Their email is info.africaconnect@gmail.com, and that's where you can send a message to subscribe to their newsletter. You can donate using PayPal at africaconnect.org/get-involved. And also on that same page on their website, you can find out information about sponsoring individual children, sponsoring specific initiatives and activities that they're doing, or donate to the Ian Memorial Scholarship Fund, which covers the fees and costs for children to attend Seed of Hope Christian Academy. The name of our missions-minded small group at One Church is Propempo. That's the Greek word that means to accompany or to come alongside and support. Our goal is to partner with the local church to keep missions and missionaries top of mind and heart. We hope you appreciate the opportunity to really envision what missionaries and mission supporters do and what they need, so that you can join us as we come alongside them, and you can be specific and intentional in your prayer and practical support of these people that are on the move in missions. Thanks for listening.